of prostitution or trafficked who's been beaten badly, walks into the emergency room, and yet she or she may be under the influence of drugs and alcohol. She's not altogether there. So immediately doctors and nurses are focusing on how to take care of that immediate needs,
Right.
and then letting her go. And because that is an opportunity for any individual to really understand and develop a protocol on if this type of individual comes in, please separate them from immediate traffickers or pimps, take them to a different examination room, and once you are there, it's kind of fact-finding mission. You start to ask questions, and then if you suspect that this individual may be trafficked or a victim of prostitution, then you need to immediately call Catholic Charities or different service providers.
So
that's what we're trying to do as well.
maybe stay on that topic just a little bit, the training. If the Ramsey County bench wanted to have some information, what kind of program do you have? Is it, can you go in for an hour and make a presentation, or is your normal training half a day or a full day? And what would they expect? You'd get handouts, you'd have people that could answer questions that they had, and you'd have the protocols, probably suggested protocols, is that?
Absolutely, all of the above.
Okay.
Typically what I do is people would call me to provide a presentation or training, and when I go to a training, I give overview of nature and dynamics of human trafficking, and what are the areas that individuals should look for, which we haven't talked about, the roofing concept of it. We will talk.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and then I will give more what to do once you identify the human trafficking or potential victims, let's say, potential. Then what to look for, and if you see tattoos, because a sense of ownership.
We see so many tattoos in the courtroom. That would be very hard one to see.
Right.
In fact, we see tattoos we shouldn't see in the courtroom.
That's right.
Well, that's something to pay close attention to, because often, as a pimp or the trafficker, we like to control our product, sense of ownership. So if you see individual with an interesting somebody's name across the neck or visible,
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
so I need
We
to
see it
come
all
and
the
train
time.
you.
It's constant. But the thing is, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I say dangerous because a little bit of knowledge.
Einstein talks about that, exactly, right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's people in my courtroom. I know that there's people who have their children's names tattooed on their necks and on their arms.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know what the harm would be. No, I don't have my children's tattoos.
I was just looking.
No.
Kensington, my baby girl's tattoo here.
But
You
we see
absolutely.
it all the time.
Yep.
And some of them brag about it.
Yes.
I got a new baby, see, so I got a new tattoo. Yeah, I'm really impressed.
So,
It doesn't work for me,
that's
I'll just
that's
say
not
that.
the only the signs. You look at the if they are malnutrition, their body is not looking that great. Look at their fingers if they are been taken care of. Hygiene. Look at their mouth and teeth and see how well they have been taken care of. And there are like a bunch
I'm
of
being really skeptical here because, you know, the people we see, I can think of one after another, as you say this, people that are in our courtroom
Yep.
for minor charges even, and of course there's more serious ones, they come from poverty.
Yes.
They are often malnutrition, don't you think?
Mhm.
And they're not clean.
Yeah.
They come to the courtroom wearing
Yeah.
inappropriate clothes, we'll
Clothes.
say.
Yeah.
Not clean, reeking sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're poor people. That's what they are.
And I think that's where I come in and I give you more in-depth detail of how to identify them. And of course, we are looking at more our U.S. population, domestic population.
Right?
But when we look at the international population, you look at all of those symptoms and look at whether they are speaking and you might have to get the translator. Like
So we should tell our listeners I have had good, very good, and very trying experiences with translators and interpreters in the courtroom. But that's another.
And that's another big thing right now with our program is developing a comprehensive case management, incorporating the translators,
Right.
culturally sensitive issues, culturally competent program, and everyone talks about trafficking. It's bad. We all agree it's bad, and most of our the solution for that is to rescue them, which is great. Then what happens once you rescue them? That's where the
I don't
Catholic,
know.
yeah,
You
that's
tell me what happened.
yeah. So that what happens is that's when the Catholic Charity Trafficking Victim Services comes in and says, okay, these are some of the issues we're gonna look into.
So you start the triage. You look at the needs.
Absolutely.
You see, I think we're probably more familiar with what used to be called the Minnesota Connection, where they take our young girls, sometimes the young boys, and ship them out to New York City for prostitution. Las Vegas was another location.
Yep.
Sometimes the young kids, as you're talking about, running away, they'd run away thinking Las Vegas, they could dance, they could have great jobs, great paying jobs. But it was looking for what used to be the stereotypical young lady from Minnesota,
Yep.
broken homes, substance abuse, domestic abuse. For whatever reason, they were taken, and the Minnesota Connection was called that
Yes.
because they would end up with their pimps in New York City,
Yes.
and some would never be seen. Some end up going overseas, and so I think we're kind of used to the exporting,
Right.
taking our people.
Away.
Our daughters, our nieces, and having them disappear.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is that they can actually, we have now a Somali connection, or we have
Yes.
a Puerto Rico connection. We have a Costa Rica connection, where people who are looking
Yep.
to come up and hit the home run by
Yeah.
getting a great job in the United States.
Yeah.
And they might end up in Texas, but they get on that truck,
Yep.
and they get 20 of them in the back of a truck that is often, you see that in the paper oftentimes, where the highway patrol stops them for some reason and opens the door, and people just scatter,
Yes.
or they find a lot of people in there, that's what we're doing.
Yes.
And so we're not trained necessarily to look for that. You know, I'm thinking
right.
the entry level for training could be our public defenders, our defense,
Yes.
even criminal defense services, that are probably going to get someone who has income and doesn't get to the level of public defenders. But look at some training within our self-service centers within the court, with the public defenders, where they can kind of make the connection. We have the bridges to safety in our building.
That's right.
That would be the place to kind of just direct them.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, well, it's, I might be too, but if we don't, and I have no reason to push this program other than the fact I know it's there. And we have the Department of Labor and Industry in Minnesota that would do the labor investigation piece of it. I know when our Hmong migration started, they were being exploited.
Sure.
And they wanted to know what the law was, and we got in and we did education. We made sure we had people going in with interpreters to explain that, no, you can't sit at this one table sewing all night, 12 hours, and not taking a bathroom break, and if you do, you're going to pay for a bathroom break. So you kind of tell them about the laws.
Yes.
And that's what I think you're saying, is that there's a lot of different places that might find this and identify it, but identifying it isn't enough.
Right.
There has to be the next stage of, what do we do when we find the exploiter? Are we going to exploit them by doing nothing?
Right.
Or do we send them back to wherever, where do we send them back to? You know, what port of entry? We're not going to put them on a boat.
Right.
So there's something that,
And it's becoming it's more political issue now than anything else, because of somehow the general population thinks human trafficking victims are illegal immigrants.
That's the part I wanted to come back to talking
Yep.
about. So
and roofing. You want to talk about roofing?
Yeah.
You just said in the course of another point you were making you know, the truck full of people that comes up to the border.
Mhm.
I think that, I don't know if it's a majority, but a large